The Galactic Council had ruled the stars for 300 years. 12 ancient species sat on its ruling thrones. They believed they were the most powerful beings in the universe. They had conquered dozens of worlds. They had crushed hundreds of rebellions. No one had ever stood against them and survived. When their sensors detected a young civilization, leaving its home solar system for the first time, the Council did what it always did. They sent an adjudicator to deliver their terms. Ambassador Valise of the Korathi was chosen for this task. She was tall and thin, with silver skin that shifted colors when she spoke. Her people had served the Council for 2,000 years. In all that time, she had never failed to bring a new species to its knees. Her ship arrived at the edge of the solar system that the natives called home. She looked at the blue planet through her viewing screen and felt nothing but contempt. These creatures had only just discovered how to travel between stars. They were primitive. They were weak. They would submit like all the others. Valise sent her message to the planet called Earth. "People of this world," she announced, "I speak for the Galactic Council. You have been noticed. You have been judged. You will now receive our terms." She explained what the Council demanded. 60% of humanity would be taken away. They would become workers in the Council's labor caste. They would serve the 12 ruling species for the rest of their lives. Earth's military ships would be destroyed. All weapons would be surrendered. Human civilization would exist only under permanent observation. "You have 30 rotations to accept these terms," Vila said. "Resistance is not advised. 43 species have tried to fight us. All 43 species no longer exist." She ended her transmission and waited. She expected crying. She expected begging. She expected desperate attempts to negotiate. That was what every species did when they learned their freedom was over. Instead, something strange happened. The humans went silent. For 3 full days, no message came from Earth. Velis grew impatient. She sent another transmission demanding an answer. Still nothing. On the 4th day, a single reply finally arrived. Valise opened the message expecting surrender. What she found made no sense to her. The message contained only 2 words. Her translation device struggled to interpret them. The closest meaning it could find was, "Come try." Valise stared at the screen for a long time. She ran the translation again. The result was the same. These primitive creatures were not surrendering. They were not begging. They were challenging the most powerful force in the galaxy. She returned to the council chambers as fast as her ship could travel. The 12 ruling species gathered to hear her report. They sat in their ancient seats surrounded by the trophies of conquered worlds. They had never known defeat. They had never known fear. "The humans have refused," Valise announced. Silence filled the chamber. The council members looked at each other with confusion. "Refused?" asked High Lord Torvax of the Drainery. He was massive, with armored skin and 4 powerful arms. His species had led the council's military for centuries. "That is not possible. No species refuses." "They sent only 2 words," Valise said. "They told us to come try." Torvax laughed. It was a cold and cruel sound. "Then they have chosen extinction." Council voted immediately. There was no debate. No one suggested trying diplomacy again. The humans had insulted them. The humans would pay. They authorized the hegemony fleet. 900 warships. 50,000 soldiers. Weapons that could crack planets open like eggs. This fleet had destroyed 43 civilizations. It had never lost a single battle. Torvax himself would lead the attack. He considered it beneath him, but he wanted to see these arrogant creatures burn with his own eyes. "We will make an example of them," he declared. "When we are finished, no species will ever refuse the council again." The fleet departed 3 days later. 900 ships moved through hyperspace toward the small blue planet. On board, soldiers prepared their weapons and dreamed of easy victory. Officers planned celebrations for their return. No one worried. No one felt doubt. They did not know what was waiting for them. Back on Earth, humanity watched the fleet leave council space. Their sensors tracked every ship. Their computers calculated every possible attack route. And in meeting rooms across the planet, leaders who had spent decades as enemies now sat together as allies. The old divisions disappeared overnight. Nations that had pointed weapons at each other for generations now shared their secrets freely. Scientists who had competed for funding now worked side by side. Factories that built cars and phones began building something else entirely. Admiral Jen Whalen was given command of Earth's defense. She was 63 years old. She had spent her entire career preparing for a war that everyone said would never come. Now that war was here and she was ready, she studied everything humanity knew about the Council. Their ships, their tactics, their victories, and most importantly, their weakness. They have never lost, she told her officers. They have conquered species who were afraid to die. They have crushed civilizations that wanted to survive at any cost. She paused and looked at the men and women around her. They were afraid. They knew the odds. They knew that 900 warships were coming to destroy everything they loved. But they have never faced us, Admiral Chen continued. They have never faced a species that would rather die standing than live on its knees. They think our anger is weakness. They will learn it is our greatest strength. Across Earth and its colonies, the preparations began. This was the Prometheus Protocol, named after the ancient god who stole fire from heaven and gave it to humanity. It was a plan that had existed only in secret files for decades. Now, it was real. Deep space stations went dark and silent. Mining ships disappeared into asteroid fields. Hidden bases activated on frozen moons. Civilian vessels were rebuilt into weapons of war. Every human who could fight was trained. Every engineer who could build was put to work. The Council's scouts flew past and saw a quiet planet. They reported that Earth seemed ready to surrender. They saw no great fleets. They saw no mighty defenses. They believed the humans had accepted their fate. They could not have been more wrong, Admiral. Chen looked at the star map showing the approaching fleet. 900 ships? Millions of enemies. The greatest military force ever assembled against a single world. She smiled. Let them come, she said. We have something to show them. The fleet drew closer. The clock counted down, and humanity waited in the darkness, ready to teach the galaxy a lesson it would never forget. Some species begged for mercy. Some species ran away. Some species simply gave up and accepted their chains. Humanity was not like other species. The Council had made a terrible mistake. They had mistaken human silence for fear. They had mistaken human patience for weakness. They were about to learn the truth. Earth was not afraid. Earth was preparing. And when the time came, Earth would strike back with a fury the galaxy had never seen. The countdown continued. The fleet approached. History held its breath. The war for humanity's survival was about to begin. The hegemony. Fleet moved through the darkness between stars. 900 warships traveled in perfect formation. Each ship was larger than anything humanity had ever built. Each carried weapons that could turn cities to ash in seconds. Commander Torvax stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the stars pass by. He felt no worry. He felt no doubt. This mission was simple. Arrive at the human world, destroy their pathetic defenses, burn their cities, take their people as slaves. He had done this many times before. It was almost boring. How long until we reached the target? He asked his navigation officer. 12 rotations, Commander. Torvax nodded. 12 rotations. Less than 2 weeks in human time. He would crush this civilization before their month ended. The Council would praise him. Songs would be written about his easy victory. He did not know that every moment he waited. Humanity grew stronger. On Earth, something incredible was happening. For the first time in human history, the entire species worked together with one purpose. The old hatreds died overnight. The old wars ended without ceremony. Borders that had been guarded for centuries now stood open. Countries that had been enemies for generations shared their most secret weapons. Russia gave its missile codes to America. China shared its satellite networks with Europe. India and Pakistan, nations that had threatened each other for decades, now built warships side by side in the same factories. Admiral Chen Weilin watched this transformation with wonder. She had spent her life studying war between humans. Now she was seeing what happened when humans stopped fighting each other and started fighting together. "We have 3 weeks," she told her command staff. 3 weeks to prepare for an enemy that has never lost. 3 weeks to do what no species has ever done. Her staff looked worried. The numbers were against them. Earth had fewer than 100 proper warships. The Council had 900. Earth's technology was primitive compared to Council standards. Their shields were weaker. Their weapons were smaller. By every measurement, humanity should have no chance. But Admiral Chen knew something the Council did not understand. Humans were not like other species. Humans did not measure victory by the size of their fleet. They measured it by their will to keep fighting. "The Council expects us to meet them in open battle," she explained. "They expect us to line up our ships and fight fairly. They expect us to die with honor." She pulled up star maps, showing the space around Earth. Asteroid belts, gas giants, frozen moons, empty space that looked useless to any sensor. "We will not fight fairly," she said. "We will fight to win." The Prometheus Protocol was humanity's secret weapon. It was not a single plan, but 1,000 small plans working together. Every rock in the solar system became a hiding place. Every moon became a fortress. Every asteroid became a trap. Deep beneath the ice of Europa, engineers built railgun platforms. These weapons used magnetic fields to fire metal rods at incredible speeds. A single rod could punch through any shield the Council had. Thousands of these platforms hid across the solar system, waiting to wake up. In the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, drone factories worked day and night. They built machines no bigger than a human fist. Each drone carried a small fusion bomb. Alone, one drone was nothing. Together, 10,000 drones were a swarm of death that no warship could stop. On Mars, soldiers trained in the red dust. These were volunteers who knew they might never see Earth again. They learned to fight in ways the Council had never seen. They learned to move through spaces too small for Council species. They learned to survive conditions that would kill any other creature. Admiral Chen visited these soldiers one day. She walked among them as they prepared their weapons and checked their suits. They were young. Many were barely adults, but their eyes held no fear. "Do you know why the Council will lose?" she asked them. A young woman stepped forward. Her name was Private Torres. She was 22 years old. She had joined the military the day after the Council's message arrived. "Guess we have nothing to lose," Torres said. "They want to take everything from us. Our families, our freedom, our future. If we surrender, we lose it all anyway. So we might as well fight." Admiral Chen nodded. "The Council has conquered species who wanted to live. They have never conquered a species that would rather die than kneel. That is our advantage. That is how we win." She looked at all of them. Thousands of faces. Thousands of lives. Each one ready to sacrifice everything. "They think we are primitive," she continued. "They think our technology makes us weak. But technology is not strength. Will is strength. Courage is strength. The refusal to surrender when all hope seems lost. That is what makes humanity different." The soldiers cheered. The sound echoed across the Martian plains. Somewhere in the darkness of space, the hegemony fleet drew closer. Its commander still expected an easy victory. He was about to learn how wrong he was as the days passed. More surprises were prepared. Human engineers studied Council technology captured from old crashed probes. They found weaknesses no one had exploited before. Council shields were designed to stop large weapons. They could not stop thousands of tiny ones attacking at once. Council armor was built to resist energy beams. It was weak against solid projectiles, moving at extreme speeds. Humanity had spent centuries perfecting the art of killing itself. Now all that terrible knowledge had a new purpose. "We know war," Admiral Chen said during her final briefing. We have fought each other for 10,000 years. We have invented weapons that could destroy our own world. The Council thinks this makes us savage. They do not understand. It makes us survivors." She pointed to the tactical display. It showed the hegemony fleet entering the outer solar system. "They are here," she announced. "They expect us to run. They expect us to hide. They expect us to beg." The room was silent. Every officer held their breath. "We'll do none of those things," Admiral Chen declared. "Today, humanity teaches the galaxy what happens when you threaten our home. Today, we stop being victims. Today, we fight back." Across the solar system, hidden weapons powered up. Silent soldiers moved into position. Drone swarms waited in the darkness. Railguns aimed at the stars. The hegemony fleet emerged from hyperspace. 900 ships spread across the void like a wave of death. Commander Torvax looked at his sensors and saw a single human shuttle floating in empty space. It was broadcasting a message of peace. He laughed and gave the order to destroy it. The shuttle exploded in a flash of light. Torvax smiled. The humans were weak after all. They had sent a peace offering like cowards. He did not know the shuttle was not an offer of peace. It was a signal. The moment it died, humanity's trap began to close. In the asteroid belt, 10,000 drones woke up. On the moons of Jupiter, railgun platforms locked onto their targets. On Mars, soldiers sealed their helmets and gripped their weapons. Admiral Chen watched the tactical display. She saw the shuttle vanish. She saw the enemy fleet moving forward with arrogant confidence. "They destroyed our messengers," her communications officer reported. Admiral Chen nodded slowly. Her face showed no emotion. Inside, her heart burned with cold fire. "Then we have our answer," she said. "All units, begin the operation." Across the solar system, humanity struck back. The battle for Earth had begun. Commander Torvax watched the human shuttle explode and felt satisfied. The creatures had sent a desperate plea for peace. He had answered with fire. Now they would understand that the Council did not negotiate with insects. "Continue toward the target world," he ordered. "Maximum speed." His fleet moved forward. 900 warships glided through the void like predators hunting prey. Officers on every ship prepared their weapons. Soldiers checked their armor. Everyone expected this to be easy. Then the first drone swarm hit them. They came from the asteroid, built in numbers too large to count. Thousands upon thousands of tiny machines, each no bigger than a human hand. They moved faster than anything Torvax had ever seen. His sensors could barely track them. "What are those?" he demanded before anyone could answer. The drones reached his fleet. They slipped past the great shields that protected Council warships. Those shields were designed to stop missiles and energy beams. They could not stop objects so small. The drones attached themselves to hull plates and exploded. The first ship died in seconds. Its armor cracked open. Fire burst from a dozen wounds. Then it broke apart and scattered across space like a toy crushed by an angry child. Then another ship died. Then another. Then 10 more. Torvax watched in horror as his fleet began to burn. These tiny machines were killing warships that had conquered worlds. His greatest weapons were useless against enemies too small to hit. "Return fire," he screamed. "Destroy them." His gunners tried. Energy beams slashed through space. Missiles launched by the hundreds. But the drones were too many and too fast. For every 100 they destroyed, 1,000 more kept coming. In 20 minutes, Torvax lost 60 ships. 60 warships that had taken years to build. Killed by machines smaller than his fist, he was still trying to understand what was happening when the second wave hit. This time, the attack came from the moons of the giant planet humans called Jupiter. Hidden beneath ice and rock, hundreds of railgun platforms woke up and fired together. Railguns were simple weapons. They used magnetic fields to throw metal rods at extreme speeds. The Council knew about railguns. They considered them primitive. Their shields could stop them easily. But these railguns were different. Human engineers had pushed technology beyond anything the Council thought possible. The metal rods they fired moved at nearly the speed of light itself. At those speeds, Shields meant nothing. Armor meant nothing. The rods punched through Council warships like needles through paper. 40 more ships died in the first volley. They did not explode dramatically. They simply stopped existing. One moment they were there, the next moment they were debris. Torvax felt something he had never felt before in his long military career. He felt fear. Fall back. He ordered, regroup at safe distance. His remaining ships tried to retreat, but humanity was not finished. Admiral Chen Weilin had waited her whole life for this moment. She watched the enemy fleet stumble and bleed. She saw their formation break apart in confusion. She knew the time had come for the final stroke. All ships, advance, she commanded. Engage the enemy directly. Humanity's fleet emerged from hiding places across the solar system. 200 warships. They were smaller than Council vessels. They were fewer in number, but they moved with perfect coordination. Like a single creature with 200 bodies, human pilots flew their ships in ways the Council had never seen. They spun and twisted through space, dodging enemy fire by margins too small to measure. They accelerated and turned at speeds that should have crushed their bodies. Other species would have died from such movements. Human bodies had evolved to survive them. The two fleets met between Mars and the asteroid belt. Fire and light filled the void. Energy beams crossed in deadly patterns. Missiles chased their targets through the chaos. Ships exploded on both sides, but humanity was winning. Council tactics were designed for enemies who fought predictably. Their computers expected opponents to follow logical patterns. Human pilots did not follow patterns. They improvised. They took risks. They did things that no sane creature would try. A human destroyer flew directly into the path of 3 Council cruisers. It should have been destroyed instantly. Instead, at the last moment, it released a cloud of metal fragments and dove beneath the enemy ships. The fragments confused their sensors, while they were blind. 2 more human vessels attacked from behind and crippled all 3 cruisers. Another human ship, badly damaged and leaking air, flew straight at a Council battleship. Everyone expected it to retreat. Instead, it accelerated. The pilot knew she was going to die. She aimed her ship at the battleship's reactor core and crashed into it at full speed. Both ships vanished in a ball of nuclear fire. Stories like this happened across the battlefield. Human crews fought with desperate courage. They sacrificed themselves to save others. They turned their own deaths into weapons against the enemy. Commander Torvax could not understand what he was seeing. His fleet outnumbered the humans. His ships were more powerful. His weapons were more advanced. Yet he was losing. They do not retreat, his tactical officer reported. They do not surrender. Even when their ships are destroyed, they keep fighting until the last moment. Torvax remembered the stories he had heard about humans. They were supposed to be primitive. They were supposed to be weak. They were supposed to surrender at the first sign of superior force. The stories were wrong. Admiral Chen coordinated the battle from her flagship. She watched the numbers change on her tactical display. Council ships destroyed, 200, 300, 400. Human losses were heavy too. Nearly half her fleet was gone. But the enemy was breaking. Push forward, she ordered. Do not give them time to recover. Her remaining ships surged ahead. They hit the Council fleet like a hammer. More enemy vessels died. More human vessels sacrificed themselves to ensure the kills. The battle lasted 11 hours. When dawn rose over Earth, the outcome was clear. Commander Torvax fled with fewer than 300 ships. He left behind the burning wreckage of 600 warships. He left behind the bodies of 200,000 soldiers. He left behind his pride and his certainty and his belief that the Council could not be defeated. Admiral Chen watched him run. She was exhausted. Her fleet was battered. More than 100 human ships had been destroyed. Thousands of brave people had given their lives. But they had won. Send a message to Earth, she ordered. Tell them the enemy is retreating. Tell them we are still here.
Out.
On Earth, The news spread within minutes. People ran into the streets crying and cheering. Families who had prepared for death now celebrated life. Humanity had done the impossible. They had faced the greatest military force in the galaxy and made it run. But Admiral Chen did not celebrate. She knew this victory was only the beginning. The Council would send more ships. They would come with bigger fleets and deadlier weapons. This war was not over. She looked at the debris field where so many had died. Human and alien alike, scattered across the void. She made a silent promise to those who had sacrificed everything. "We will finish what you started," she whispered. "We will make sure you did not die for nothing." Far away, Commander Torvax reached the safety of Council space. He sent his report with trembling hands. The words felt impossible to write. The hegemony fleet had been defeated. The humans had won. The Council received his message in stunned silence. For the first time in 300 years, they did not know what to do. But one thing was certain. Everything had changed. The galaxy would never be the same again. And somewhere on Earth, Admiral Chen began planning her next move. Defense had kept humanity alive. Now it was time to take the war to the enemy. The Council had started this conflict. Humanity would finish it. The news of Earth's victory traveled across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. Every species heard what happened. Every world saw the images of Council warships burning in the void. For 300 years, the hegemony fleet had been invincible. Now its wreckage floated around a small blue planet that no one had heard of before. On the Council's home worlds, panic spread. The 12 ruling species called emergency meetings. They shouted at each other and blamed each other and demanded to know how this disaster had happened. They had sent 900 ships against primitive creatures. Fewer than 300 returned. "We must send another fleet," declared High Lord Venix of the Karathi. "A larger one. We will crush them completely." "With what ships?" answered Commander Torvax bitterly. He had survived the battle, but his pride had not. "The hegemony fleet was our greatest force. Half of it is now debris." The Council argued for days. They agreed on only one thing. The humans had to be destroyed. If other species learned that the Council could be defeated, everything would collapse. But they were already too late. On 100 conquered worlds, enslaved species watched the recordings from Earth. They saw human ships dancing through enemy fire. They saw human soldiers fighting to the last breath. They saw the mighty Council running away in terror. And they began to remember something they had forgotten long ago. They remembered hope. The first rebellion started on Velcana Prime. The Velcani had been conquered 800 years ago. Their people had served the Council ever since. They worked in factories. They died in mines. They lived lives of endless suffering with no chance of escape. Now they rose up. It began as whispers in the darkness. Small groups meeting in secret. Weapons hidden under floors. Plans drawn on scraps of cloth. The Velcani had no army. They had no ships. They had only their anger and their numbers. When the uprising began, it spread faster than anyone expected. Workers attacked their overseers. Slaves overwhelmed their guards. Factories that built Council weapons were burned to the ground. In 3 days, the entire planet was in chaos. The Council sent peacekeeping forces to restore order. 5,000 soldiers landed on Velcana Prime, expecting to crush the rebellion easily. They were wrong. The Velcani fought like creatures with nothing to lose. They attacked from buildings and tunnels and sewers. They used tools as weapons. They sacrificed their lives to take down single soldiers. The peacekeepers had better equipment, but the Velcani had fury. None of the peacekeepers survived. Their ships were captured, their weapons were taken. And the Velcani sent a message to the galaxy. "We stand with the humans. We will never kneel again." Admiral Chen received this message on her flagship above Mars. She read it 3 times, unable to believe what she was seeing. Earth's victory had inspired others to fight. The war was spreading beyond anything she had imagined. "This changes everything," said Captain Torres, who had been promoted after the first battle. She was no longer a scared young soldier. Combat had hardened her. We are not alone anymore. Admiral Chen nodded slowly. She had expected to fight a defensive war. She had expected to hold Earth as long as possible, before the Council overwhelmed them with numbers. Now she saw a different path. The Council's power depends on fear, she said. Every species they control believes fighting back is hopeless. The Velkhani have proven that is a lie. If more species join us, the Council cannot fight everyone at once. She called her officers together and explained her new strategy. Humanity would not wait for the next attack. They would strike first. They would hit Council supply lines and military bases. And everywhere they went, they would carry a simple message. We do not wish to rule you. We wish to free you. Rise with us. Operation Prometheus Rising began 2 months after the first battle. Human ships moved through Council space like ghosts. They appeared without warning, attacked with terrible force, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. A refueling station in the Karathi system was destroyed in 30 minutes. A weapons factory on a Council moon was burned from orbit. A convoy carrying supplies to the hegemony's rebuilding fleet was ambushed. Only wreckage remained, but the military attacks were only part of the plan. More important were the messages that humanity broadcast across every frequency. We are human, the broadcast said. 3 months ago, the Council tried to enslave us. They sent their greatest fleet. We destroyed it. Now we come not as conquerors, but as liberators. The Council can be defeated. We have proven it. You can prove it too. Rise with us. Be free. More rebellions followed the Velkhani. The Thornax threw off their chains and captured an entire Council battlecruiser. The Sylvani refused to work in the mines that powered Council industry. The Damari assassinated the Council governor, who had ruled their world for 2 centuries. Each rebellion weakened the Council further. Each uprising required troops to suppress. The Council's military was stretched thinner and thinner. They could not rebuild their fleet and fight rebellions at the same time. Admiral Chen watched the map of the galaxy change color. More and more systems were marked as contested. More and more species were joining the fight. What had started as one planet's desperate struggle for survival was becoming a galactic revolution. We need to coordinate with the rebel species, she told her command staff. Separately, we can hurt the Council. Together, we can destroy them. No, it was not easy. The rebel species did not trust each other. Many had been enemies before the Council conquered them. Old hatreds died slowly. But humanity proved to be surprisingly good at diplomacy. Human ambassadors traveled to every rebel world. They did not demand leadership. They did not ask for control. They simply offered help and asked for alliance. We are all in this together, Ambassador Park told the Velkhani Council. We all want the same thing. Freedom. A future for our children. The right to make our own choices. Let us work together, and we can have all of those things. The Velkhani agreed. So did the Thornax and the Sylvani and the Damari. One by one, the rebel species formed a coalition. They called themselves the Free Worlds Alliance. Humanity was just one member among many, but everyone knew the truth. Without humanity, none of this would have happened. Without that first defiant message sent back to the Council, hope would have stayed dead. Admiral Chen became the military commander of the Alliance, not because humanity demanded it, but because the other species asked her to lead. She had proven herself in the first battle. She had shown courage and wisdom and honor. They trusted her. The war continued for another year. The Alliance won some battles and lost others. Brave soldiers on all sides died for their causes. But slowly the tide turned against the Council. Their economy was collapsing. Their slaves no longer worked. Their supply lines were broken. Their military was exhausted from fighting on 100 fronts at once. The 12 ruling species began to argue more fiercely than ever. Some wanted to negotiate. Some wanted to fight to the end. Some wanted to flee to distant corners of the galaxy and hope they would be forgotten. Admiral Chen knew the time had come for the final blow. But it would not be a military attack. She had learned something during the war. something that would destroy the Council more completely than any weapon. She had learned the truth about how the Council began. "Prepare a team," she ordered. "We are going to the Council's sacred archive. We are going to show the galaxy what they have been hiding for 300 years. The final phase of the war was about to begin, and when it ended, nothing would ever be the same again. The Council's sacred archive was hidden on a moon that had no name. Only the 12 ruling species knew it existed. Only their highest leaders were allowed to enter. Inside those ancient walls lay the true history of the galaxy. The history the Council had spent 300 years erasing. Admiral Chen sent her best team to find it. Human soldiers worked alongside Velcani scouts and Thornax engineers. They followed clues gathered from captured Council officers. They fought through defense systems designed to stop entire armies. Many did not survive, but enough of them did. When they finally reached the archive's heart, they found something that would shake the galaxy to its core. The Council had always claimed they were naturally superior. They said their 12 species had evolved to greatness through their own strength. They said this made them worthy to rule over lesser creatures. Every conquered species was taught this story from birth. It was a lie the archive contained. Records dating back thousands of years. They told a different story. Long ago, before the Council existed, a great civilization had traveled the stars. They called themselves the Architects. No one knew where they came from or where they went, but they left behind gifts. The Architects had visited 12 primitive worlds. They found species barely more advanced than animals. They gave these species technology. They taught them science. They lifted them from darkness into light. The 12 ruling species of the Council had not evolved to greatness. They had been handed it by others. Everything they built was based on technology they did not create. Everything they achieved came from knowledge they did not earn, and they had hidden this truth for 300 years, Admiral. Chen received the archive's contents and understood immediately what they meant. This was not just information. This was a weapon more powerful than any fleet. "Broadcast it everywhere," she ordered. "Every frequency, every system, every world. Let everyone see what the Council really is." The transmission went out across the galaxy. Billions of beings watched the ancient records. They saw the proof that the Council's superiority was a myth. They learned that their rulers were no better than anyone else. They discovered that the foundation of the Council's power was built on lies. The effect was immediate and devastating. On Council homeworlds, citizens demanded explanations. Their governments had no answers. How could they explain 3 centuries of deception? How could they justify ruling others when they had been given everything by forces they could not even remember? Within Council military forces, loyalty crumbled. Officers who had believed they were serving a noble cause now saw the truth. They had been fighting for frauds. They had been killing for liars. Many refused to continue. Some turned their ships toward the Alliance and asked to join. The 12 ruling species tried to deny everything. They called the archive fake. They claimed humanity had created the records to trick the galaxy. But their denials rang hollow. Too many details matched what historians had always suspected. Too many mysteries finally made sense. One by one, the Council's remaining allies abandoned them. Species who had supported the war effort withdrew their ships. Governments who had stayed neutral now openly joined the Alliance. The Council found itself alone and surrounded. High Lord Venix called for a final stand. He gathered what remained of the Council's military and prepared to defend their home systems. But his forces were a shadow of what they had been. Exhausted soldiers, damaged ships, officers who no longer believed in their cause. Admiral Chen brought the Free Worlds Alliance fleet to the edge of Council space. Thousands of ships from dozens of species flew together. They had the power to finish the war with fire. They could destroy the Council's worlds and end their civilization forever. But Admiral Chen did not give that order. Instead, she sent a message to the Council chambers. Her face appeared on screens across the galaxy. She looked tired, but strong. 2 years of war had aged her, but her eyes still burned with purpose. "People of the Council," she said, I could destroy you. The Alliance has the strength to burn your worlds to ash. We could do to you what you tried to do to us. Many believe we should." She paused. The galaxy held its breath. "But we will not," she continued. "We did not fight this war to become what we hated. We fought because no species should kneel before another. We fought because freedom is the right of every thinking being. If we murder you now, we betray everything we believe." The council leaders watched her message with confusion. They had expected demands for surrender. They had expected to negotiate terms of their subjugation. They had not expected mercy. "This is our offer," Admiral Chen said. "The council is finished. You will release all slaves. You will give up all conquered territory. You will accept that you are not rulers of the galaxy, but citizens of it, equal to everyone else. Do this, and there will be peace. Refuse, and you will face the consequences alone." It was not really a choice. The council had nothing left. Their fleets were broken. Their alliances were gone. Their legitimacy had collapsed. They could fight and die, or they could accept the new reality. After 3 days of bitter argument, the council accepted humanity's terms. The war was over. What came next was harder than the fighting had been. Thousands of worlds needed to be rebuilt. Millions of former slaves needed homes and food and medicine. Species that had been enemies for centuries had to learn to live together. The free worlds. Alliance transformed into something new. It became a council of its own, but one built on different principles. No species ruled over another. Every world had a voice. Decisions were made together, not imposed from above. Admiral Chen was offered leadership many times. The liberated species wanted to make her their queen, their president, their supreme commander. She refused every time. Humanity did not fight to rule, she said at the first assembly of free worlds. We fought because someone had to. We fought because we could not accept slavery. We fought because that is who we are. She looked at the representatives gathered before her. Velcani and Thornax and Sylvani and Damari and 100 other species. Former enemies, now sitting side by side. Build your own futures, she told them. Make your own choices. Learn from the Council's mistakes. Do not let any single species become too powerful. Do not let fear and lies become the foundation of your civilization. And if tyrants rise again, remember what happened here. Remember that even the mightiest empire can fall when ordinary people refuse to surrender. She stepped down from the podium. The assembly erupted in cheers that lasted for hours. Admiral Chen returned to Earth a hero. But she did not seek fame or power. She retired to a small house by the sea and spent her remaining years watching the waves. Sometimes reporters came to ask her questions. She always gave them the same answer. I was just one person, she would say. Humanity won because we worked together. We won because we never gave up. That is the lesson. That is what matters. Years passed. The galaxy changed in ways no one could have predicted. Old hatreds faded. New friendships formed. Species that had never spoken. Before now traded and traveled and shared their cultures. The Council's former rulers, scattered to distant corners of the galaxy. Some hid in shame. Some sought forgiveness from the species they had wronged. Some simply faded into history, remembered only as warnings about the cost of arrogance. But the lesson of the human war was never forgotten. In schools across 1,000 worlds, they learned about a young species that refused to surrender. They learned about an admiral who chose mercy over revenge. They learned about a galaxy that finally became free. And they learned the warning that was carved into monuments on every liberated world. The warning that reminded everyone what happened when tyrants underestimated their victims. It said simply, never provoke the humans. They do not know when to stop. The galaxy had entered a new age. It was uncertain and messy and sometimes difficult, but it was free. And that made all the difference. Far away, on a small blue planet orbiting an ordinary star, people looked up at the night sky and smiled. They had been told they were primitive. They had been told they were weak. They had been told to kneel. They had refused. And in refusing, they had changed everything. This was humanity's gift to the galaxy. Not conquest. Not empire. Just the simple, stubborn belief that every thinking being deserved the chance to choose their own path. The stars were free now, and they would stay that way forever.